year. You remember that? And we talked about baby Moses in the basket. Well, now that baby has become a man. And he has been raised in Pharaoh's household. And he has lived a life of comfort and luxury. He enjoyed every privilege that would come with being a princess's son. He had access to every privilege. He wanted for nothing, and his life was the epitome of luxury and comfort. But he was very uncomfortable with this comfort because he knew that the Egyptians were not his people. And the people to whom he truly belonged, the Hebrews, were slaving away while he enjoyed this comfortable life. Certainly, he must have been grateful to the princess who rescued him and gave him this life of safety and protection. He grew strong and healthy on food that was grown and harvested and cooked and served to him by Israelite slaves. He enjoyed the finest clothes and slept on the smoothest of bed sheets made from Egyptian cotton, picked and combed and sewn by Israelite slaves. He lived in the finest of palaces, built and cleaned and served by Israelite slaves. Seeing a pattern here? Perhaps it's no wonder then that Moses had this speech impediment that he complained about. He must have been tutored by the best of Egyptian mentors. He probably understood how to read cuneiform, the Egyptian written language of the symbols and the pictographs. But when it came to speaking Egyptian, the words caught in his throat. It's like this was not his language, because he knew that his true language was Hebrew. Maybe he remembered the time when he was a toddler and he heard the words spoken to him by his mother. And she would have taught him how to praise the God of Israel with these words: Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord your God is our God. The Lord is one. This was his mother tongue. But the language of his palace mother was not. And it didn't feel right in his mind or his mouth. These prayers that he had to pray to all of these Egyptian gods and goddesses just didn't fit well for him. So when he spoke, the words just came out all wrong. It's as if they were wrestling with the Hebrew words, making him stutter when he tried to talk. He just couldn't get the words out. And he probably endured a lot of teasing from the Egyptian boys. Everyone knew that he looked different. His eyes were lighter than theirs. His skin was lighter. His hair didn't look the same. His nose didn't look the same. And his speech made him sound stupid. Only because he was the adopted son of a princess did they hold back in their mockery. But when she was out of the room, they teased him mercilessly. You stupid Hebrew. Where's your daddy, sandy skin? Shouldn't you be down there in the brickyard with the rest of the slaves hauling up bricks? Yeah, you know, when he talks, it sounds like he's got a brick for a tongue. Yeah, let's call him Brick Tongue. Brick Tongue, Moses has a brick tongue. And this kind of teasing would have gone on for years and years. there came a day when he decided to step out of the palace and see for himself what was going on for the brickmakers. He knew all of this time that he wanted to speak out, to speak up in defense of himself, in defense of his kinsfolk. But every time he tried to speak, his brick tongue just crushed the words. He felt like a coward all the time. But in the brickyard that day, something snapped in Moses. He saw one of the Egyptian taskmasters beating one of the slaves there in the brickyard. And Moses couldn't contain his rage. All those years of teasing, all those years of watching the Hebrews oppressed, Moses just picked up one of those bricks and he just slammed it into the skull of the Egyptian taskmaster, killing him instantly. Now you would have thought that his kinsfolk would have been grateful that he had been saved from this abuse, but no, that's not what happened. Because the Hebrews didn't like Moses either. He might have looked like them, but his clothes, his fine clothes, his posture, his rich-smelling cologne, all gave him the bearing of an Egyptian, not one of the Hebrew slaves bent over carrying bricks all that time. And so when they saw that he was the one who did this murder, word spread quickly. So he was hated by the Hebrews and hunted by the Egyptians. So he knew he needed to escape. He needed a new life. He needed to go someplace where no one cared whether he was an Egyptian or a Hebrew. No one cared whether he was a slave or a prince. He just needed a fresh start. And he found it. He traveled south from Egypt, from the Nile Delta, down to the southern tip of the Sinai Peninsula, to the mountains, where he found the Midianites, people who did not care what his past was. And they accepted him. And he fell in love with Zipporah, a woman who accepted him for who he was, brick tongue and all. And his father-in-law, Jethro, took him under his wing. Jethro was a priest, and he saw something in Moses that Moses didn't see yet in himself. Jethro knew that Moses was destined for something great. But Moses wasn't ready yet. He needed time to heal. All Moses wanted to do was to be a sheep herder. He just wanted to be left alone on the mountain, tending the sheep, with no one bothering him, no one teasing him, no one reminding him of his past. So Jethro gave him that time and space until one day he said, you know, Moses, this morning I'd like you to take the flock up to the mountain of Horeb. Now Moses wouldn't have known what Horeb was, but Horeb was the mountain of God. Jethro knew that if Moses was going to encounter God as he needed to, the best place to go was to send him to Horeb. And so that is where Moses found God. Or rather, where God found him. When he encountered that burning bush, he saw something that amazed him, that took him by surprise. He was found in the water as a baby. Now he is found by the fire as a man. But he is a man consumed with shame and embarrassment for the mistakes that he made and the imperfections of his speech. Perhaps it's deliberate then that God would choose a burning bush to appear to Moses. It's a bush that burns but is not consumed. Moses must have been asking himself, who is this God that would create such a thing? And then he hears that voice speaking to him, not in Egyptian, but in Hebrew, calling him by his Hebrew name. This is the God of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob. It's starting to come back to Moses. He remembers those names. He remembers his mother telling him the stories of his kinsfolk, who he comes from, and who this God is. And now this God is speaking to him out of this burning bush and telling him that he is supposed to go back to Egypt and free his kinsfolk from slavery. And that a land flowing with milk and honey is being prepared for them. Now, you would think that Moses would be excited by this news, right? No. Moses says, with his brick tongue and his checkered past, he says, who am I? Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt? I'm not the one you want. I'm not the one. But you see, it's not just about who Moses is. Because God responds and says, I will be with you. It's not just about who you are, Moses. It's about who God is and what God promises and what God does. I don't know what faults or sins might be consuming you right now. Maybe you have mistakes and things from your past that you feel are threatening to consume you. But God says, I will not let your past or your weaknesses consume you. In fact, I will use them to bring light and hope to people. Where is your leaf on this bush? I know where mine is. I know the thing that I'm not proud of, the thing that I would rather run away from, the part of myself that I worry might consume me. But I also know what happens when God enters that fire and transforms my faults and my past into something that can give light and hope to somebody else. Moses' encounter with God on the mountain that day tells me that no matter my weaknesses or my faults, God can use them. Where is your leaf on this bush? What is the shame or crime or mistake or weakness that you have that if God would give you a mission that would cause you to say, like Moses, oh Lord, please send somebody else? God says, oh no, you're the one I want. And the fire shoots up into the sky from that burning bush and says, oh yes, Moses, and you are not going to have to do this by yourself. At this very moment, your brother Aaron is coming to you. Now, you've never met Aaron, but he's been watching you all this time. He's heard stories about you from your sister, Miriam, and he's been watching you from afar. And when you came into the brickyard that day, he saw what you did. And while it was not good that you killed a man, what he saw in you was a spark, something that could ignite the people of Israel to fight for their freedom. You have that spark of leadership. You have a gift. And finally, Aaron's saying to himself, here is the one who will lead our people out of slavery. You ran away, Moses, but Aaron is coming to find you. And together, you will lead your people out of slavery and into freedom. I don't know how God is speaking to you today. Probably not in a burning bush. Or maybe it is. I don't know what your past sin is. Probably not a speech impediment. Probably not the crime of killing another. Or maybe it is. But I do know this. Wherever you are right now, God has a job for you. God has something in mind for you, and God is not finished with you yet. Your Jethro is guiding you. Listen to him or her. And your Aaron is coming to you to help you in your task, to help you change things, to help make this world better, to bring light and hope and warmth to this world. Your Aaron is on the way. It's not about who you are. Who you are is important, but it's not just about that. It's about who God is. And God is. God is. Amen.